Kantchil and the Deep Hole. Far away in Indonesia, there lived a small deer who was only 1 foot tall. Her name was Kantchil, little deer. The other animals liked to make fun of her because she was so small. But though she was small, she was very smart. One day, Kantchil, little deer, was walking through the forest. She was being careful and keeping an eye out for tigers and wild pigs and lions that might sneak up and catch her. As she walked, Kantchil looked to the left, and she looked to the right, and she looked up, and she looked all around. But she didn't look down, and that's where she should have looked, because there was a deep hole, and little deer fell in. This hole was so deep that even though she was a good jumper, little deer could not jump out. And the sides of the deep hole were so smooth, even though she was a good climber, little deer could not climb out. At first she was frightened all alone in that deep hole, but then she looked around and saw a leaf laying on the bottom of that hole. And that's when she got a great idea. Meanwhile, up on top of the earth, Machang the tiger came walking along the path. He came to the edge of the deep hole and looked down and started to laugh. "Ha ha, little deer, you are so foolish. You have fallen into the deep hole. But why are you staring at that leaf?" Kantchil, little deer, moved her eyes back and forth as if she were reading the leaf, and she said, "This is no ordinary leaf. This is a magic leaf, and the magic leaf says, 'The world is going to end today, and only those in the deep hole will be saved.'" "Well," said Machang the tiger, "looks like I must get down into that hole." "Oh, no," said little deer, "you would surely sneeze, and the magic leaf says, 'Whoever sneezes must be thrown out of the deep hole.' Do you promise not to sneeze?" "Oh, yes," said Machang the tiger, and he jumped down into the deep hole. And then there were 2 in the deep hole. Soon, up on the forest path, along came Bobby the pig. He looked down into the deep hole, and he began to laugh. "Oh, you are so foolish, little deer. You have fallen into the deep hole. But how did Machang the tiger get there? And why are you staring at that leaf?" "Oh," said little deer, "this is no ordinary leaf. This is a magic leaf, and the magic leaf says, 'The world is going to end today, and only those in the deep hole will be saved.'" "Well then, I should be in that deep hole," said Bobby the pig. "Only if you promise not to sneeze, for the magic leaf says, 'Whoever sneezes must be thrown out of the deep hole.'" "Oh, I promise," said Bobby the pig, and he jumped into the deep hole. And then there were 3 in the deep hole. Soon there was a rumbling up on the forest path, for Gajah the elephant was coming. Gajah came right up to the edge of the deep hole and looked down. Then he began to laugh. "Ha! Look at that, Kantchil, you little deer. You have done another foolish thing. You have fallen into the deep hole. But why are Machang the tiger and Bobby the pig down there with you?" Then Gajah noticed the leaf. "Why are you staring at that leaf? You are so silly." "Oh," said Kantchil, little deer, "this is no ordinary leaf. This is a magic leaf, and the magic leaf says, 'The world is going to end today, and only those in the deep hole will be saved.'" "Oh, no," said Gaja the elephant. "I must get into this hole right away." "Oh, no," said Kantchil and Ma-chung and Ba-Bee. "You are too big, and you will surely sneeze." The magic leaf also says, "Whoever sneezes must be thrown out of the deep hole." But Gaja the elephant said, "I will not sneeze," and he jumped into the deep hole. Then there were 4 in the deep hole, and one of them was an elephant, so it was very crowded in the deep hole. And it was also very deep and very dark and very dusty in the deep hole, and soon Ma-chung the tiger began to... "Stop," said Little Deer. "If you sneeze, we will have to throw you out." So Ma-chung pinched his nose with his paw. He could hardly breathe, but he didn't want to get thrown out of the deep hole. But it was very dusty in the deep hole, and soon Ba-Bee the pig began to... "Stop," said Little Deer. "If you sneeze, we will have to throw you out." So Ba-Bee pushed his nose into the dirt. He could hardly breathe, but he did not want to get thrown out of the deep hole. But it was very dusty in the deep hole, and soon Gaja the elephant began to... "Stop," said Kantchil and Ma-chung and Ba-Bee. "We don't want to have to throw you out of the deep hole." So Gaja tucked his trunk between his knees and squeezed. He could hardly breathe, but he did not want to get thrown out of the deep hole. But it was very dusty in the deep hole, and soon Kantchil, Little Deer, began to... "Stop," said the other animals. "We will have to throw you out of the deep hole." But Little Deer began... "Choo! Choo! Choo!" Then Ma-chung the tiger and Ba-Bee the pig and Gaja the elephant said, "We're sorry, Kantchil, Little Deer." And they picked up Little Deer and went 1, 2, 3, and they threw her way up out of the deep hole. And when she landed up on top of the earth, Kantchil, Little Deer, shook off all the dust, cleaned off her whiskers, and smoothed her fur coat. Then she went to the edge of the deep hole, looked down at the 3, and said, "Thank you. Bye." And off she went down the forest path. But this time, Kantchil was more careful. She looked to the left, she looked to the right, she looked up and all around. And she also looked down.